Hello, glad you could join us today. This is Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm CJ.
And I'm Chip.
And boy, do we have a show. First, a little house cleaning. I had already posted this on Facebook and on our Spindle City page that I will take my mea culpa where I have to. I called out City Councilor Joe Camara, Council President, on not starting the City Council meetings as per ordinance, and I said the ordinance was 8. Well, according to an ordinance passed in 2011, Ordinance 2011-22, they changed it from 8 to 7 p.m. So I apologize for misrepresenting the time that was supposed to happen. But I will tell you this. They still don't start the meeting at the time posted. I mean, at Tuesday night's meeting alone, they took 2 hours worth of citizens' input, and for a 3-minute section that you're supposed to get, Terry Sullivan took a good 25 minutes. So it was kind of interesting to see. On Tuesday, I attended a public hearing in regards to the changes that are going to be made in the Fall River Housing Authority, which has a lot of people concerned. These are the changes as presented, and the Housing Authority has no jurisdiction over it whatsoever. They can't change it at all. This was enacted by Congress under Public Law 113-72. And it says that if you're on flat rate rent with the Housing Authority, you're going to be paying more money now. This does not apply to anybody who has to get recertified every year and they pay 30% of their income. This only pertains to people who pay the current flat rate. And according to the Housing Authority and Dan McDonald, the deputy administrator there, they say there's only about 250 families which are affected by this. But when I started looking at these rents, I'm like, wow, this is what these people pay? At Sunset Hill, for a 5-bedroom, they're currently paying about $680. As of October 1st, they'll be paying $1,565. Not a bad uptake. For a 1-bedroom, they'll be paying $748, where they're currently paying $415. So if you're one of those 250 people, I would suggest you make a meeting with your facilities manager and discuss what effect this will have on you. But again, if you are one of those people or one of those families which has to recertify every year and your rent is adjusted according to your income and you're on a sliding scale, you do not have to worry about this. So please, don't go driving your managers nuts because they are overworked as it is. Now to get into some of the crises of the day. First off, the Fall River School Committee, on a 6-1 vote, approved a $99 million operating budget. The one dissenting vote was the mayor, who is still proposing a $97 million budget in violation of the law. Wait a minute, he's a lawyer. I don't think he would do that, now would he? But we're going to see what happens when the budget is presented later on this week. The big news is the fact that Terry Sullivan came forward yesterday, and in his 25 or 30 minutes of citizens input time, and from now on, when I do citizens input, if I'm told to wrap it up, I'm going to say, point of order, Mr. Council President. He laid out in detail what will happen if he doesn't get this rate increase. That the DEP is going to come in, fire is going to fall from the sky, the city is going to burn, nobody's going to have water, we're going to be taken over by the state, and life as we know it will end. I think that's a little excessive. And I think what Terry Sullivan should have done was, he was in front of the council a few months ago asking for a rate increase on the meter fee. He should have included it all in one fell swoop. Do it once, don't do it, several times during the year. It kind of gets a little ridiculous. I mean, what did you think about that tirade that went on? And it was amazing. I mean, it was foolish.
Well, it was obviously an orchestrated movement. Terry Sullivan got, as you said, 25 minutes, and then they had a former water board individual come up, and he got more than the allotted time. And they were all the prophets of doom. The state's going to come down, and as you said, life as we know it was going to end, and that may not be a bad thing when we're talking about Fall River in reality, but that's probably not going to happen. The EPA and the state take forever to do anything, kind of like the city of Fall River. CJ opened the program doing his mea culpas, but I'm going to say something that CJ didn't mention was when he did his original research and he stipulated the 8, he was looking at the city ordinances which haven't been revised.
Correct.
And since that change took place in 2011, it means that in 3 years, our city has not updated its ordinances. So I guess at that work rate, maybe the state should take over. So, but we want to announce something else. We want to be the first to announce it. I guess this morning on a local radio station, they were discussing how the city was going to go to the GIC. Well, I just walked out of a meeting 15 minutes ago, and I signed the agreement to stay in Blue Cross. So you heard it here first on Spindle City Straight Talk. The city employees will remain on a Blue Cross plan. We will not go to the GIC. The plan is not as good. I have a lot of issues with it, but the fact is that they're still balancing the budget on the backs of the employees. But we're getting a you know what kind of sandwich, but this one's got a little bit of ketchup on it. It's a little bit better than what the city was proposing, but it's still a very, very bad scenario for people on fixed incomes and people with children. And basically it was unnecessary, as we've said numerous times. We were running under budget with our present plan, and the reason that we have to lose health care benefits that we negotiated and paid for and gave up things for is that the city, again, has mismanaged our budget, spent all our money, and their answer is to take more.
You know, what significant change on this new Blue Cross plan is expected? Or are you expecting with this new health plan?
Well, there are going to be much higher co-pays than are currently in place. I basically did some numbers at a city council presentation a few weeks ago, and the co-pays are going to go up significantly. If we used the current plan and you used each thing that required a co-pay, under today's plan it cost about $575. If you use the new plan, it'll cost about $2,300. So just as the rents, the government has a great way of dragging every single cent out of the people who have very little money, which I can segue into yesterday's council meeting with part of the dog and pony show was after the water department got its 25 minutes. Our leader of the Office of Economic Destruction, Ken Fiola, marched down to the podium and
in sandals, jeans, and a tie and a button-down shirt. That I thought was amazing.
Yeah, I guess that's the new attire for barristers in this city. And he proceeded to go on a tirade. And I don't know is it my turn for a commentary today?
That will be a little later. Yes.
Yeah, I think I'll save the rest of this, but let's suffice to say that he basically proposed, let's tax our way out of our problems. And the last time I checked, taxing your way out of anything is not the way to solve anything.
No, it's not. And it was very interesting, though, to see, because the pay-as-you-throw issue was not on yesterday's agenda, but people were talking about it because, again, it's another fee. It's another cost to the people of Fall River, and not only the people, but the property owners. And as I clearly stated during the input time, I said, we don't even have an ordinance which governs this yet. So it's not even something we should really discuss, but we have to. And I think the problem is that we have a pay-as-you-throw program. They're talking about at $2 a bag. They're talking about raising the water rate. They got a 2.5% 2.5% tax increase. And now, on the radio today, Councilor Mitchell said we might do better just to override Prop 2.5 to 5%, because we could cut out all the extra fees and just pay it. Because one way or the other, you got to pay it. The only difference is that as a fee, you can't deduct it from your taxes, but as a tax, you can deduct it. So you gotta weigh them. But my big concern is the fact that you have city councilors who regularly seem to make a fool of themselves. It's the first chair, I believe. And you have people who are presenting valid arguments, as we've presented. And I really wonder, is citizens' input time anything but to say, okay, we've given these people enough time to piss and moan, and they just dismiss it? Because for the most part, I think they truly dismiss what we say. And that's scary, especially when you look at how their idea of handling Cushion's rules of order is handled. They can't run a meeting, okay? They truly can't run a meeting. They don't do anything when you file a complaint. They don't do anything when you bring things to them. And interestingly enough, the list of information that came out yesterday from the corporate counsel's office was very informative. If you look it over very carefully, you see things like payments to the EPA. For what? I want to know for what. Why? What are we paying them for? And as you said, the EPA takes forever to do anything. They had complaints from several residents about illegal dumping at the water department. They've had complaints about illegal dumping on the shores of the Watuppa. They've had complaints about illegal dumping and illegal removal of contaminated waste from sites. And they never did anything. They sent a letter, and they got a letter back, and they said the letter meets the requirement. It's kind of like the DOR. Yeah, we'll audit you, but you got to ask for it, and you got to pay for it, and your mayor has to say it, and the city council has to approve it. And that came up yesterday as well. And it was another futile point, because the mayor has to ask for it, and then the city council approves it. And we said, who pays for it?
Well, again, we get back to they're getting what they really want. The mayor is getting what he wants. When we talk about overriding Proposition 2.5, we're talking about subsidizing ineffective, inefficient government. Because we have seen our city government grow with a lot of patronage positions, assistance, pay raises to people, starting people in jobs that if they graduated from law school and went to the DA, they get $38,000, $40,000 to start with limited benefits, yet the assistant corporation counsel gets hired at $70,000 right out of law school with no experience, and they farm most of their work out. We have nothing. We have so much fat, so much waste in our city government. But the answer always is to burden the taxpayers. Override 2.5 to avoid the other fees. Well, what we're doing is subsidizing inefficiency again. As we said in front of the council again, cut the fat out of the budget. It's always about taking money out of the people who can afford it the least.
But Chipper, I mean, you hear from every department head, I've cut all the fat out of the budget. There's no place else I can cut. Terry Sullivan said, there's no place else I can cut. I'm down to 47 or 49 people working in the water department. I can't cut anywhere else. I can think of a place to cut. Let's look at 2 supervisors at a trench, which is standing there drinking coffee, while 3 guys are in the muck. Why do you need 2 supervisors to oversee 3 guys? It's a little ridiculous.
You're right. And why did we need 2 new supervisors in the DPW positions created, when the DPW is at its manning level is I think historically one of the lowest points it's ever been. Yet we added 2 new supervisors. We added 2 new captains in the fire department, even though the manpower has gone down. We continue to create these positions, administrative and management positions, and we say, we've cut fat.
And there's no department in the entire city which is higher on administrative positions than the school department. I mean, the school department's loaded with them. We create an administrator for everything. If we get a new grant, we got a new administrator. Well, that's the management pay. But when that grant goes away, we still pay for them. We keep them on. And a statement was made yesterday, which is very true. If you want a good-paying job with the city, go to New Bedford. If you want a good-paying job as an administrator, go to Fall River. Because that's what happens. Because in Fall River, as an administrator, you always have a job. But if you're one of the rank and file, if you're one of the poor suckers who's going down into the ditch to stop a water main break at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're going to get laid off because we don't have the money for it. How about you lay off a few administrators? You know?
Well, that's true, but see, that would be the logical thing. In private industry, when they downsize, they downsize all aspects. But they don't lay off the people who actually produce the products that they make the money on because they need them. You know, they reshuffle management, they restructure management, they give management more work to do. But in this city, we have the inverted pyramid. We have a few Indians, and we have hundreds of chiefs running around, and they never seem to go away.
True. It's very true. And the worst part about it is they walk lockstep with the administration because they're tied to them. And Terry Sullivan said something very interesting yesterday, which said very clearly where his loyalties lie. Because they don't lie with the water department. They don't lie with the consumer. They don't lie with the taxpayer. He said yesterday, well, right now the handcuffs are off. I can do what I need to do right now because the handcuffs are off. Because, as he was told, you don't raise the water rates when it's an election year because no one running for mayor and no mayor wants to have the water rates go up. And that's when they get their hands cuffed. And now his hands are uncuffed. He can do what he wants because it's not an election year. Isn't that a blatant truth? I mean, it's just, you know.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate truth because the fact is that, you know, if something is necessary, I don't believe the taxpayers, and I believe you as a taxpayer, don't mind paying for services. You know, if we're going to pay for firefighters, for police officers, all those things are essential services. We've said it time and time again. Clean water. What isn't essential is extra supervisors, neighborhood liaison people with assistants. These are the kind of jobs that create the issues we have. We've had this tremendous influx of positions that are really meaningless. Let's face it, the neighborhood associations were quite capable of advocating for themselves directly to the mayor before we had this position. But the mayor's got a school chum that he wants to give a job to, then he gives him a 50% pay raise, then he gives him an assistant. You know, politics as usual.
And a college intern that doesn't get paid and does all his work.
And a college intern that doesn't get paid. You know, I mean, there's the concept. Find, you know, how many people in City Hall does it take to screw in a light bulb? Well, if you're an administrator, it takes about 200. If you're a worker, you have to do it alone.
Well, if you're the treasurer, it takes 4. And then the answer always is, I don't know, but I'll have to research that and get back to you. So it's always funny. It really is. And now for the biggest joke of the city council yesterday. So, Chipper, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. And we have a second.
Yeah.
Okay? And when have we ever taken a roll call vote on a motion to adjourn?
You can't do that. It's a non-debatable motion.
It's a non-debatable motion, right? So what did the city council do? They took a roll call vote. And it passed with Pat Casey saying, I'll vote yes, so I can see the city go down in flames. Isn't that lovely? Your city council saying she wants to see the city go down in flames. I think you should make that your campaign slogan for next year. I want to see the city go down in flames. And they voted it and it passed. And then Pat Casey made a motion to reconsider the motion to adjourn because she wanted to change her vote. And Joe Camaro was going to let it go through. He turned around and he says, oh, well, we're going to have to recess for a meeting for a minute so we can check the rules. So he comes back and blatantly was, you know, very upset about it. He goes, there is no debate on the motion to adjourn. Therefore, we're done. We're adjourned.
Well, you know, I hate to say this, but, you know, you should never assume the presidency of an organization that's bound by parliamentary rules and not know the procedures. And, you know, it just goes to show the type of government we have where no one in that chamber that's sitting there knows anything about the rules. They use Cushing's, whether it's Atwood's, whether it's Roberts, whether it's Cushing's. There are fundamentals. There are non-debatable motions. There are priority of motions. there are things that people who have ever held a gavel and ever participated in a meeting should know. And it's absolutely incredible to watch the fiasco that they call a meeting. They have absolutely no idea of a parliamentary procedure. Number one, a motion to reconsider can only be made by someone who voted on the prevailing side. They wanted to try to get people who weren't on the prevailing side to make a motion, and they made a motion to have someone make a motion, which is illegal. And then we have motions to table that are routinely discussed. Another non-debatable motion.
Right.
Motion to adjourn. Non-debatable motion. You make a motion to adjourn, it's seconded, the vote has to be taken, period. And I mean, these are just fundamental, basic parliamentary procedures that anybody should know if they want to assume a position like the presidency of a city council. And it's a disgrace. You know, and Ken Fiola talked about people laughing at Fall River, but they don't laugh at Fall River for what the reasons he defined. They laugh at Fall River when they watch a city council meeting and know that the buffoons that we have sitting in those chairs don't have any idea of how to run a meeting.
And again, I've always said it, you know, clearly. The only thing that happens at a city council meeting is every city councilor, you know, the Fantastic Eight and the president, on occasion, get their 5 minutes of fame on the camera on every question. You wonder why something as simple as the city council meeting or as simple as the finance committee meeting has to keep going on. They go through, they all ask a question, then they go back and they all ask another question, they go back and they ask another question. It shouldn't take that long to get the information you need. And you can see the foolishness in it because, look, I'm on camera. I look good. Not me. I go, oh, look at me. I gained 20 pounds. But, you know, this is what happens. It's, you know, give me the 5 minutes of fame.
I'm going to make a prediction. Even though it's illegal, because a motion to reconsider is a time certain motion, can only be made, this is the last meeting. They can't bring it up. Someone will attempt to reconsider this water at the next meeting because they don't even know that you can't make motions to reconsider a year later, 6 months after something happens. Because if that was the case, you could change every motion that was ever passed depending on who's attending the meeting. Mm-hmm. So it's not debatable. But the fact is that you can't make a motion to reconsider. But they basically do whatever they want to do because, as you said, if you put a camera in front of them, even if what they say makes absolutely no sense, they have to say something.
You know, and, you know, the only council who really hasn't taken advantage of that is Paul De Silva. He doesn't seem to have opened his mouth.
Yeah, unfortunately, Pat Casey should follow his lead.
True. And with that, I think it's time for Chipper's lovely 2 cents commentary.
Well, okay. I just, you know, I mean, it's happened before numerous times, but yesterday was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. When Ken Fiola, with his casual attire, his Miami Vice 5 o'clock shadow, his jeans, sandals, which is fine. You know, he's not sitting on the council, and I don't think there's a dress code for citizens' input. But when he gets up there and says the things that he says, it's just outrageous. He had the audacity to say, hey, people laugh at people in Fall River because we don't want to pay higher taxes. Well, you know something, Kenny? They don't laugh at us in Boston and other places because we don't want to pay high taxes, because nobody does. They laugh at us because we have you running the Office of Economic Development for 20 years and doing absolutely nothing. That's why they laugh. They laugh at Fall River because we don't want to raise taxes. Our tax rate is too low. You and your $200,000 salary and your commissions over the top and your wife is a state rep and a real estate business and probably $300,000 or $400,000 worth of income per year. Yeah, you don't care. How about the old lady I ran into that's living on about $850 a month for Social Security and has a little cottage that she's trying to hang on to? The hell with her, right? This is Fall River, right? We can all afford it, even though we got the second lowest household income in the state. But we can all afford it. We're like you. We're big time, Kenny. We're big time. They laugh at us because we don't want to pay taxes. Well, if you're so great at figuring this out, why do you have to give everybody a TIF so they don't have to pay taxes to come to Fall River? If high taxes are irrelevant, why do we give everybody TIFs? We give it because people don't like to pay taxes. And if they pay taxes, they want them to be used properly. They laugh. Do you laugh at Newton, Kenny? Newton has 14,000 businesses compared to Fall River's 4,000. They have 2,000 less people. Firefighters, police get paid more than they do in Fall River. They have a Class A school system. And they have lower taxes than we do. Why? They have an average household income of $113,000 a year as opposed to $34,000 in Fall River. You run in the Office of Economic Development, dopey, and I hate to tell you this, but you can't develop an economy where people don't have any money. And your solution is to take more money out, let everybody pay more taxes. Let's tax our way out of Fall River's problem. We're going to pave the streets with gold that we take out of people's teeth. I don't know where you're coming from, but I think that what you said yesterday demonstrates clearly why you're so ineffective in your job. You don't have a clue when it comes to what drives economic progress.
Well, with that clearly being said, you put the fire out in my furnace on that one. It's a shame that, statements are made by people who are in authority or supposed authority in Fall River that we're the laughing stock of the state and of the country. People don't want to come here. They don't want to come because of uncertainty, and you're right about that. It's the uncertainty about it. When you have a city council that gets into a pissing match with the mayor, and they're just asking for clarity and transparency in the entire picture, and instead they're given bits and pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. Well, here's a little bit, here's a little bit, here's a little bit. Well, where's the meat? We can't do this anymore. And I sit in that city council meeting, and I honestly want to say to you at home, coming in here sometimes can be the most depressing experience you can have. And doing what we do can be the most, depressing experience you can have because there's nothing out there to be glorified about.
Yeah, I mean, he can't figure out why we can't attract middle-class people. Well, we're 44th in drug use. We're 48th in crime. We have potholes, dirty streets, a crappy school system. Yeah, sure, Kenny. Raise taxes. Drive the few people that are left out. Don't try to change the city. Don't try to earmark money to improve the areas that bring people in. No, let's spend our money on assistance and patronage jobs and just raise everybody's taxes. Good idea, Kenny. I can't figure out why people don't want to come to Fall River because, believe me, I'm sure most of Newton would move down here if they had the chance.
Well, I think you said it well, and with that, we have to wrap. We'll see you again at the end of the week, and we'll have more news because we don't have to write it. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.
Stay active.